the United Nations voted to kick Russia off the UN Human Rights Council, right? So this took place on April 7th. You had 93 votes in favor, 24 against, and 58 abstentions. Let's take a look at the vote as it happened.
We shall now begin the voting process. Those in favor of draft resolution A/ES-11/L4, please signify. Those against, abstentions.
The General Assembly is now voting on draft resolution A/ES-11/L4, entitled Suspension of the Rights of Membership of the Russian Federation in the Human Rights Council. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, 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 partner. I saw the stream went offline for a second. It's okay. We're still here. I said CIA too many times. They're coming for me. So, let me just show you the various reactions to this, to Russia being kicked off the council. Okay, take a look. This is what the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Greenfield, had to say. Right? Let's see what she had to say.
Every day we see more and more how little Russia respects human rights. And that is why I announced yesterday that the United States, in coordination with Ukraine and many other UN member states, will seek Russia's suspension from the UN Human Rights Council.
Here's Zelensky's reaction.
Росія поступово програє навіть на тих майданчиках, які розглядала як цілком комфортні для себе. Зокрема, Генеральна асамблея ООН ухвалила рішення про зупинку членства Росії в Раді з прав людини. Цілком логічно, цілком справедливо, але також не без боротьби за це рішення. Вдячний тим державам, які підтримали це.
The funniest reaction was from Cuba. Do you know what they had to say?
Could this assembly someday adopt a resolution suspending the membership of the United States in the Human Rights Council? Just to give one example. We all know that that has not happened, nor will it, despite its flagrant and massive violations of human rights as a result of invasions and wars against sovereign states, given its geopolitical interests. They have caused the deaths of hundreds of millions of civilians, which they term collateral damage. There have been millions of displaced people and destruction throughout our planet. But this assembly has never suspended any of its rights.
No, they not only don't suspend the U.S. Actually, Saudi Arabia used to be the chair of the Human Rights Council, right? Yeah, Saudi Arabia. Let's take a look at the votes. Do you know who voted to kick Russia off the UN Human Rights Council? Look down here. Israel. So Israel, which is, you know, is well, thank goodness. I mean, like, what would we do without the Israelis, right? They're the defenders of human rights. When they shot 2 Palestinian women today and killed them, that was an expression of their love for human rights, right? Bulldozing houses. That's the embodiment of human rights, right? Kicking people out of their homes. The Israelis, they don't do this better than anyone. Honestly, what all of this clown, this circus proves here is that the UN is fucking useless, and the UN Human Rights Council means literally nothing. What does that mean, the Human Rights Council? It sounds so ridiculous, and it is ridiculous. You know, it doesn't stop there. I want to show you, like, they're really trying to go further than this. I showed you Greenfield. She's the current U.S. ambassador to the UN. Here's Nikki Haley, who had her job under Trump. She wants to go further. Let's take a look at what she had to say.
I have dealt with that Russian ambassador many times. They will say whatever they need to deflect off of their irresponsibilities and their immoral actions. And I think that not only should they not be on the Human Rights Council, they shouldn't be on the Security Council, period. They shouldn't even be able to have a veto at this point when you look at the genocide that's happened on the streets of Ukraine.
So how does a member, I don't think anyone's ever, I mean, they're all those members have been in place since the very beginning, right? Would that ever happen?
Man, even the host is like, what the hell are you saying, woman? She wants to kick Russia off the UN Security Council. Look, man, after World War II, you have 5 countries that got permanent seats on the UN Security Council, right? It's the victors of World War II. You got France, UK, US, Russia, and China. And Russia, again, I've told you this before, Russia actually lost more than anyone in World War II. They lost about 27 million people. Fighting the Germans. They also killed the most Germans. They inflicted 80% of German casualties. 80. That's, the overwhelming majority. So the whole point, the whole reason Russia has a permanent seat on the UN Security Council is because they fucked some Nazis up. And now you're coming here and saying you want to take that away from them when they did just as much as you, if not more. Come on, man. This look how absurd they've become. It's just like, yeah, well, we did it with the Human Rights Council. Let's just keep going further. Like, let's just really prove how utterly useless the UN is. Oh, wow. I mean, she's really a caricature, like Nikki Haley. Again, I'm not going to abuse you with showing you another 8 minutes of her talking, but it's it's pretty much the same thing. It's pretty much what you would expect. And Israel, Saudi Arabia, the US, UK, they want to lecture people about human rights. I'm done. Like, I don't even, I'm out of breath and I don't care to even say anything. I'm done. I'm just, it's so stupid. One more thing, they kicked Libya off the Human Rights Council as well. I think Libya was the first country to be kicked off the Human Rights Council, and they did that also in 2011. So it was right at the start of this war, and again, that was just political, right? They just did it to say, Gaddafi's bad, and we're kicking him off the Human Rights Council just to substantiate that, and this warrants the NATO bombing, and it's part of the whole package. It's the whole the military and the propaganda campaign. That's what it is. It's not actually about Gaddafi. It's about, like, we need to stop you from messing with the French currency, the US currency, and get your gold. And so we're going to call you a dictator, even though we support other dictators. But those dictators are cool. Do I really have to go through, the entire human rights record, or lack of human rights record from, the Israelis? I feel like a broken record, because their crimes are like a broken record. So I have to keep repeating myself almost every day. And the same goes for the British and, the Americans. The French, even the French, I was just talking about in the 50s and 60s, they killed 1.5 million Algerians just to hold on to Algeria as a colony. Again, and this is after the UN was already formed. After France already has a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. And again, just to be clear, the Human Rights Council is different from the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council is its own organ. My point is, though, that these countries, these Western countries, they want to talk about and lecture about human rights. Look at what they've done, and not that long ago, too. Again, it's so absurd. I feel like a broken record. It's frustrating. Look at what the British did in India. I mean, Christ, that's like going back 400 years. One thing to keep in mind is the neo-colonialism, because the way they teach you in school is that 1945 you had the process of decolonization, which is really kind of funny, because actually no one wanted to decolonize. The British were just bankrupt. They were already bankrupt from World War I. And then even more bankrupt after World War II. Meanwhile, the Americans, they had a really, really powerful emerging industry. And, they fixed the US dollar as the global reserve currency. And then, barely 10 years later in 56, you had the Suez crisis. So, I mean, it was done deal. The US had cemented itself as the hegemon, and the UK just became irrelevant. I don't know who said that. Was it Glenn? He said it's like some sad little island or something. Like, that hurts. It hurts me, but it's funny. But my point is that these countries, they committed so many crimes not that long ago. They're still committing them to this day with this, relationship they have with their former colonies, and they want to talk about human rights. Now, again, it doesn't mean like Russia is perfect, because that's a stretch. That doesn't mean there's nothing to criticize about Russia. But my point is that if you're going to throw Russia out, okay, fair enough. But throw everybody else out who's guilty of the same thing that you're saying Russia did, and then some, right? Because I don't think Russia can even compete. Like, honestly, I don't think they can compete with, Israel and the US and the UK. And honestly, it's kind of funny seeing Israel vote against them, because usually, again, a lot of Israelis are actually Russian Jews, right? Or Ukrainian Jews. So it's kind of interesting to see them take a position, because so far the Israelis have been trying to stay more or less neutral. That's why they didn't want to send the Iron Dome to the Ukrainians. Again, I don't, like, just from a military point of view, that makes no sense. It's like you're trying to cut a potato with a hammer, Just like, it just doesn't work. The Iron Dome is made for something completely different. It's not going to help you against Russian missiles. But, that aside, just politically speaking, the Americans wanted to give the Iron Dome. The Israelis said no. So it's interesting to see them actually vote against Russia. But, the more surprising point here is that, like, it's Israel. They're the last ones to speak.